Hi, and welcome back to a new year and new season of the Latina Leadership Series. I am your host. I'm lying. I am your co-host. I am one of five co-hosts now here on the Latina Leadership Series. We have we're changing things up a little bit. So we're definitely applying what the series is all about to what the conversation is going to lead to. So if I am the only host, all you're really getting is just ever what conversation like I'm introducing or what I might be intriguing into the conversation or the questions that are being asked. And it's definitely a community project. So I had to bring on co-hosts. I have four new amazing co-hosts for this podcast, and I think it's going to be amazing. What I would like you to do if you have an opportunity is to welcome the new co-hosts. So we got Diana, Jacqueline, Sonia, and Carolina. These are amazing women that I have met personally that I know that they're going to do an amazing job here on the podcast. And so I'm excited. I'm excited for this new year. I'm excited for this new season. We've already started recording like guests and, wow. We've had some amazing guests in the past. We're going to have amazing guests in the future. I am my cup. What's the term? My cup runneth over. I'm just so ecstatic about the things that are to come for this podcast and the new co-hosts that you're gonna see, and we're gonna have new conversations. We're gonna have other intriguing like questions for guests that you're gonna get perspectives on, not just mine. So how do I lead into this? I don't even know how to lead into this, but I guess enjoy the new conversation with my new co-host, in which I have one-on-one conversation, and then we have a small group conversation. We talk about friendships, and then we talk about the responsibility of feeling like you're being supported as a Latina within the workplace. I mean, this one right here might be a two-parter. It might be a little bit longer, but yeah. Plug in those headphones or take that long drive and listen in. So hope you enjoy it. Hi, and welcome to a new episode, new season of 2023, the new podcast, Latina Leadership Series, with amazing new co-host for the first time ever, the person who has been a really big backbone to the Latina Leadership Series and the new Latina Leadership Series. It's going to be its own podcast now. Can you imagine? It's not If Not You, Then Who anymore. It's Latina Leadership Series with co-host. On today, well, right now, because later today I have another conversation happening. But right now I have Carolina. Can you just introduce yourself? Give us your little spiel. Tell us who you are. ¿Quién eres? ¿Qué estás haciendo?
Man, a little spiel. Well, my spiel's been reinvented many times. But no,
Well, give us your version.
so Carolina Arenas, born and raised in Queens, New York. I'm a first-generation Colombian American, and Houston has been my home now for 11 years. I am a social worker, not licensed social worker, but I have my master's in social work, and I feel that that is something that drives a lot of what I do. So after working in the field of social work for about 11, 12 years, I became a stay-at-home mom. And after becoming a stay-at-home mom, that's when the whole idea of entrepreneurship or, having your own business came about. And I took the plunge and I started Meraki YU, which are artisan-made products from Colombia. I started networking a lot more. That's when I started meeting you.
How do you define success?
Success for me is, and I realized that when I became a stay-at-home mom, because I didn't want to, but I knew it was the right choice. So for me, success is me being happy.
Okay.
So that I can be able to then do what I have to do. Does that make sense? So so I started my small business because I knew I wasn't happy just being a stay-at-home mom and just cleaning, just cooking, just picking up my kids. Like I needed something more so that the career professional Carolina can still be fulfilled somehow. And if that was fulfilled, then I could be that good mom that I wanted to be because I was happy. So, and I think the same way goes the opposite way. If I'm happy being a mom, then I can be happy as the worker. I hope that makes sense. But I think my own happiness or being fulfilled in certain things that I want to do.
If you could compare to what you thought your life would look like growing up, would you say it's the same, or is it completely different from what you thought it would be?
I don't know. I never thought that far.
No?
I'm weird. Yeah, I don't know. Like I never was that person like, oh, I can't wait till I get married and I can picture myself. I don't know, but does it look different? Yeah. Like I said, I never thought I would leave New York. Honestly, I thought I'd be living probably, in the same neighborhood, probably the same building, or I never thought of moving out from where I was from.
Have you ever been wrong? And if you were, what was the lesson learned?
I've definitely been wrong many times. Lesson learned. Um, to not react out of emotion. So to take a step back and analyze the situation first, whether
Mhm.
it's with family, my own kids, a stranger, just not to act or make decisions out of emotion.
With that, Carolina, I think this one just wraps up so very quick. Like they're gonna get to know more of your personality, who you are, as you start to dive deep into like other conversations and interviews yourself. And so I'm excited about that part.
I'm excited too.
Okay, so it's a completely separate day, but on the extension of the podcast that you're seeing and the other interviews that I've had with the other co-host, welcome to the addition of the other new co-host, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, you've been part of our team for quite some time and you've watched some of these episodes. I think you're an integral part of the Latina Leadership series, and it just made sense that you would come on as a co-host. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
I've been working with Angelica, you and Juan for like almost 2 years now. And I have a degree in communications, and I love what I do. I love being creative. On the personal side, I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I'm also an actress. Um, yeah, I guess I really like the arts and being creative. So yeah, I'm a mom of a 3-year-old and soon welcoming a little girl into the family too. So, um, yeah, I'm excited. Lots of exciting things.
Okay, so next question to get to know you a little bit more. Looking back at when you were growing up, does your life look like what you thought it would be compared to what it would look like?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, I'm okay. When I was a teenager,
Uh-huh.
I hated being a teenager. When I was 16, I remember thinking, "I just wanna be 30 already." Like, "Can I just skip high school? Can I just skip all this stuff?" Honestly, like, I was just like, "I'm done. I wanna be 30." My vision was like it was 2 things. One, being, married, having a happy marriage, and having children. Like, I always knew I wanted to be a mother, I wanted to be a wife, but, uh, the other part of it was like I also want to live in a city and have like a condo and like just drink wine every night or eat chocolate and watch movies and just be like on my own and be super successful in this company and like downtown, because I'm a city girl.
Yeah.
And that was like, like show Sex in the City, I imagine myself as like Carrie, like like I could see myself living in the city, just doing my thing. So I had 2 very different ideas. Um, so I'm happy that, I'm happily married, I'm a mother, um, but I still get to be creative, I'm still in the city, but, you know, but, yeah, it's funny how we, like, think about these things, when we're younger, and it's like, "Oh, okay, life happens, and then things go differently, but sometimes you end up happier than you were, and if you find you're not, then I feel like you can always make a change, I think that's the beautiful thing about life is that you don't like something, well, change it. If you
Yeah.
can, we obviously can't change some things, but, if there's something you can change, all right, do it.
How do you define success?
How do I define success? I think it's personal. I
Okay.
think it's very personal, and it depends on the person because, um, I think growing up, like, as a teenager, I always thought success was like, this had to be this major, big thing, it had to be like perfect and, beautifully packaged, but I think as I got older, I realized that success can be, the little things, like, hey, I completed this milestone. You know, I did this very realistic thing. It's like, I think part of it is like setting realistic goals and meeting those goals, even if it's just like, hey, I did it. I exercised today. I feel like I feel successful today because I exercise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think um, for me, it's changed a lot. And so right now, success is like, you know, am I satisfied with what I accomplished today? Am I, you know, I think we're all on a journey. And for me, it's like, I want to take one step at a time and celebrate the little things in life. And, I always think about, you know, um, like a scripture that says, don't despise small beginnings. I
Mhm.
love that. It's like, don't look down on the baby steps. So I now that I'm in my 30s, like I really appreciate the baby steps now. And I appreciate like the little things.
Have you ever been wrong? And what was the lesson learned?
Have I ever been wrong? Oh yeah, I'm wrong all the time. Um, I think I think more personal, like on a more personal level. Um, before I had my son, before I became a mother, um, I think I was very like more rigid um,
Mhm.
in general, and
Okay.
more or even before I got married, I think my husband is like the opposite of me. Like I think I'm type A personality, maybe.
Mhm.
He's like not, so I'm very structured and he's like the opposite. So like I'm like prone to like anxiety, and he's not. So he kind of like we balance each other out. I think he helps me with that. So I think for me it was like um I think because I was more rigid and I was all about controlling things around me,
Mhm.
when things would fall apart, I would lose it because it was like things are falling apart. Like, I need to get this right. I need to fix it. I
Mhm.
need to make it perfect again. You know, when my dad died
Mhm.
in 2009, um, this is before me and my husband, like, we started dating in 2009. So my dad died in 2009. And so here's me as a rigid person. And I thought I knew it all. And like it changed me. Like, it changed me completely. I stopped going to church, which it turned out was a good thing in the long run because, I felt like I needed time. God was healing me outside church. Like me being away from church was good because I didn't stop. I didn't lose my connection with God, but I did change it to change my perspective about people and about, you know, life in general. So, like my sisters started having kids around that time. And I feel like I was like really judgmental um as a person and extra even more so because they were my sisters and I love them and me trying to protect them was like, came off as being judgmental.
Mhm.
Even though it was like I really love you. I just want to take care of you almost. I want you to be okay. I don't want you to make mistakes. I don't want. And then, when life happened to me, it was like, then I became a mother. I was like, wow, this is like a new perspective. You know what I mean? Like I should have been more gentle with them,
Mhm.
and I think grief does weird things to everybody. Everybody processes it differently. But at the time, again, in my mind, I'm being protective, but I'm sure on the outside, I did not look protective, or I looked kind of like, crazy. Um, but So yeah, I think again it's more personal, but that's like the one of the biggest lessons I think I've learned is like to chill out more. My husband helps me like when I'm starting to freak out. Like I used to when I would get lost, I used to like just freak out and cry.
Mhm.
I got a smartphone and GPS, of course, but that's just an example of like in general, like in life, like I would freak out for all kinds of things because of my anxiety and whatnot. And now I think I just kind of I laugh more when like shit hits the fan. I think I laugh more. And I'm
Mhm.
like, well, hell, what can you do? You know? And I'm that's very different than pre-2009 when I was, like, super rigid and thought I knew it all. Um, Now I think I'm more humble, and
Mhm.
you know what? I don't know it all. When I find myself being that, like, kind of that person creeping back in, I'm like, "No, no, no." Like, let's just and life happens and throws something at me to humble me again, 'cause, life has a way of doing that. Um, so yeah, I guess for me, that was my biggest lesson of when I was wrong and
Yeah.
how I handled it. Like, I think being a rigid person was just totally wrong for me at least.
Mhm.
And I think being more chill and being more like laid back has helped a lot. I think I'm
Mhm.
happier, and I think the people around me are happier too.
Pero Jacqueline, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on here and introducing yourself first, just one on one. My next co-host here is Sonia. Sonia, so really quick, just give us a little insight about you. Give us a little excerpt of who you are.
Hi, so my name is Sonia Ramirez, and I am a storyteller. If somebody were to ask me, how do you want to be remembered? I would say as a storyteller that told beautiful, impactful stories. But my background is in journalism and media. So I born and raised, here in Houston, the East End. Went to Milby High School, and I graduated from the University of Houston. So I have my degree in journalism, and then pretty much like while I was still in college, even in high school, I was on the yearbook staff, and then I was always like just writing like little stories, and then in college I joined like the newspaper there and the yearbook staff, and then I started meeting editors. Back then it was different. It was the late 80s, no, 90s, early 90s, and it was different, nothing like today. So just meeting editors. So my first experience was writing for print magazine, and then I just got on with Univision. I was lucky. It doesn't always happen that way, but I was lucky that as soon as I graduated from U of H, I got a job with Univision, and that was my home for like maybe over 15 years. And I learned a lot there. And then along the way, I was continuing to write. I'm blessed to say I've been able to have jobs in media my whole career. I've worked radio, TV, print, but my passion is writing. So I feel so blessed and fortunate that I've gotten to meet people from all walks of life and work for places like Hip Latina Magazine, the Texas Hill Country, and then before the pandemic, the Houston Chronicle. That was my dream. I used to be a little girl, and I used to stand outside of the Chronicle building when it was downtown, and I used to dream, and I used to tell myself, you're going to work there one day. One day you're going to make it there. And then that one day was in February 2020. But then the pandemic hit, and they laid off a lot of people. And unfortunately, I was one of them. But I got almost 2 years of good
Mhm.
experience there. So I guess that's kind of me in a nutshell.
How do you define success?
That is a good question. Because to me, I don't define success if you have a degree. Just,
Mhm.
people that have masters, PhDs, normally that's what people associate. Oh, I made it. I think whatever your dream is, if your dream is to get a PhD, or if your dream is to start your own business, or if your dream is just to be the best mom you can be, that's how I define success. Whatever success means to you in your heart, then I think you succeeded.
When you compare your life to the way you grew up, did you ever imagine what you would be doing today?
No, because I grew up in the barrios of the East End with a single mom in an apartment, MIA dad, which unfortunately, that's what I'm taking care of today. So that's a different struggle. You're taking
Yeah.
care of being a caregiver to a parent that wasn't there. That's tough. But
Yeah.
everything was against me.
Mhm.
Everything was piled up. But I would be the kid like. Besides writing, I love dancing. My dream when I was a younger in high school, I wanted to be a choreographer, which I was a choreographer growing up. So
Mhm.
if you grow up with me, you know. But I used to dream about like being in Janet Jackson videos and dancing with Paula Abdul and choreographing and being a fly girl like Jennifer Lopez. But that didn't happen. That did not materialize. But I used to practice. I used to practice morning, noon, and night dancing, and that's the way I attack my writing too. I would be writing up, staying up and getting my stories in, making sure I met the deadlines. When I was writing with the Hill Country, I would write like a, a bunch of stories. Just try to get them all out and get as much experience and get my work out there. But looking back, somebody like me is probably not supposed to make it. You're growing up, you're going to high school, I didn't have anybody really to look up to or encourage me or support. I kind of had to just push myself. Well, my mom was great. If it weren't for my mom, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be
Mhm.
standing here. She was my biggest supporter and my biggest defender and my biggest cheerleader. So with my mom, she kept pushing me. She was not going to let me not graduate from college, and
Mhm.
I didn't. I wanted
Mhm.
to quit so many times, but she kept saying, no, you have to stay, you have to finish. And I'm really glad I did, because I don't think I would have found the opportunities that I did if I hadn't finished school. So poquito a poquito, I've just been, trying to make my way, and God has opened doors for me that I never could have done on my own, and I never would have imagined. But I'm just grateful, that I was able to overcome so many obstacles that were there, and then just go through them, just trailblaze
Mhm.
through them and believe in myself that I could do it. Because if you don't believe, then you're going to be afraid to take the chances. You're going to be afraid, to go for those opportunities. And believe me, I'm an introvert. You may not think I am, but I'm an introvert. And I'll go out when I have to. I'll do interviews when I have to, but I am more comfortable like behind the scenes. I guess that's why
Mhm.
writing is great, because
Mhm.
nobody sees you, when you're writing, they just see your name.
Have you ever been wrong? And what was the lesson learned?
The one thing that I struggle with is that I feel like I didn't do enough for my mom. So I feel
Mhm.
like I failed her sometimes because I
Mhm.
wasn't more attentive. Like you said, you're growing up, you're young, you're living your life, and you're not paying as much attention, and when your parent gets sick, that's when you kind of all reflect and it kind of all hits you in the face, and I feel like I wasn't there as much for her as I should have been. That's one regret. I love my mom. I didn't know as much because she had diabetes, so that's what she passed away from. So I
Mhm.
wish I would have learned more, or what I wish I knew what I know now back then, and maybe
Mhm.
I could have helped her better. So that's
Mhm.
a personal, mistake. Um, Gosh, in my jobs, it would be um, taking I don't want to say abuse, but taking what's a good word, dealing with people or bosses, that didn't appreciate you,
Yeah.
and taking their, excuse my language, but I guess taking like their crap,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody should take behavior just because they're your supervisor, or just not take somebody cursing at you on the phone.
Mhm.
It's like I've left jobs like that. It's like, oh no, I'm not gonna take that. I deserve better. Realizing that I deserve better.
Mhm.
That we shouldn't take that in the workplace.
Mhm.
And standing up for your coworkers. And
Mhm.
I guess just realizing that you deserve better and you're a good person and you don't deserve to be treated that way.
Thank you, Sonia, for joining the team.
I'm so excited. Thank you. Y un fuerte abrazo to you guys. I wish I could hug
Igual.
you in person. But
At this point, I've already introduced three of the co-hosts, and at this moment, I have Diana, who is the last of the co-hosts that you'll see for this season. Pero, Diana, welcome, 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 welcome to the co-host, to the new and I would say improved, but a little bit different of the Latina Leadership Series. I think I'm very excited because I feel like you have a different perspective from all of us completely, right? So all of us are mother, but you're not. You're one of the younger, you're the youngest one to be joining us as a co-host. You have a completely different perspective on what's going on. Pero go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners and the audience.
So, hola, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be joining you and to be taking part in these conversations. Yo soy Diana Rubi, and I am a first-gen immigrant. I am originally from Mexico City, and I'm also a first-gen professional. So I am very curious and excited to have conversations around leadership and what that looks like for other Latinas.
Have you ever been wrong? And what was the lesson learned?
As an immigrant, and I'm formally undocumented, so as a formally undocumented person, I was sold this narrative and this vision of who I was supposed to be, and I just kind of lived with that for almost my entire life, and it wasn't actually until the COVID pandemic that I was able to have some real reflection time where I started to kind of dig deep into where those narratives, where some of those goals were coming from. And I just realized that the path that I was going towards was not actually where I wanted to be. It wasn't where I actually saw my future. So yeah, I feel like I've been wrong a ton. And before, I think it was harder to kind of recognize that and to admit it, even to myself. But
Mhm.
now, I mean, it is what it is. I feel like you live and you learn and you take all those, like I took everything that I have experienced and um my previous journey, like I've taken all that with me and just kind of moving forward from here.
How do you define success?
This is a really interesting question. I think success, it doesn't look one way. And I think for me, ultimately, success, it doesn't, and I say this, I think, still as like a young person that's like getting started with building what I want to build. But I think right now it doesn't necessarily hold a specific monetary value, which I think is what usually I hear success means. But I think for me, it's really about like living in my truth and living in my passion, like waking up and doing the things that I want to be doing. And I see myself headed that way. I feel like I'm still on my journey.
Mhm.
I still wake up every day happy in doing what I get to do. I'm very grateful for where I'm at now, but I think that I definitely like envision myself in a space where I can be creative, for example, on a regular daily basis. I can do more of this, like collaborating with other Latinas and talking to other women about I don't know, life and all good things.
In comparison to what you thought life was going to look like for you, are you doing what you thought you would be doing?
My whole like life, I thought I was gonna do immigration law. Like I was set on it.
Uh-huh.
Desde like since middle school. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So here I was like 10, 11-year-old, like telling everybody I'm about to be an immigration attorney. And it stemmed from my own story, right?
Yeah.
Because when we started going through the process, I was the interpreter for between
Mhm.
the attorney and our family. um and that really impacted me as a small like 10, 11-year-old because I just like that wasn't fair to me that, families needed the support and there was nobody that looked like them where they could reflect with and even just communicate with. Like it really depended on a small child. So I carried that with me and I got to the point, I mean, I was like headed that way. I got to the point to where I was working at like one of the largest nonprofit organizations in Illinois, in the state of
Mhm.
Illinois, that works for immigrant refugee rights. And, I have journal entries from like when I started that role, and I was just starstruck
Huh.
because that's what I was working towards. Like I was going there and I was still studying for the LSAT at that time. So I was working full time and planning on taking the LSAT. Um, and then, the pandemic happened and we were isolated. And at that time I lived by myself in my studio apartment in Chicago. So I had a lot of time to think,
Hmm.
a lot of time. And so that's when I really started just kind of thinking about what it was that I wanted to more of, what I wanted to cultivate in my life. And it wasn't the path that I was going towards. I learned that I started doing that. I do have a lot of passion for that field and that work, but a lot of it stemmed from my personal trauma of being that person that had to communicate between an attorney and a family for something that is so important, right? Like for what felt like my whole livelihood. And
Hmm.
so I learned where that kind of seed stemmed from, and it just didn't feel right to move forward with that anymore. So I've been pivoting. But yeah, so I'm okay with not not being where I thought I was gonna be.
Although I know you're much younger, our stories kind of align a little bit. Like they've
Mm,
crossed paths and they're parallel slightly. And so I'm like,
mm.
okay, but I'm excited to have you on here as the part of the co-host. I'm excited to have the other ladies. Y sabes que muchas gracias for coming on and joining us and saying yes to it.
Yes, no, thank you. I'm so excited for this journey too.
Hi, and welcome back. So, on the continuation on this podcast, we have a collective conversation today to, of course, get to know a little bit of Carolina and Diana and your new co host here on the Latina Leadership Series. So, I didn't know exactly what kind of conversation I wanted to have up until like earlier today because I was going back through my notes, ladies, and one of the conversations that I find myself having a lot with you, Carolina and Diana, are like relationships between women and relationships between like just relationships between platonic relationships, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And bueno, back in the day, I picked up a magazine. It was a Time magazine, and it was the whole magazine was about the science of relationships. And in that magazine, they did a lot of articles relating to like friendships and platonic relationships. So there are two articles here that I want to discuss with you ladies. Um, one of them was called Types of Friends Everyone Should Have. I'm going to go through it and then we're going to discuss. Okay. So, first, the type of friend you should have is someone to talk to. Someone to talk to, it's the acceptance and the cornerstone of any friendship you can open up to and be vulnerable with. This person is more of a sounding board. Their role is to make you a better person and may mean giving you tough love. You should be able to let your guard down with this person. The second kind of friend, and of course they can all be the same person, but the second kind of friend that you should have is someone to depend on. So this is the person that you rely on, knowing you have someone you can count on for the everyday stuff, knowing they have your back. They bring you comfort and give you a sense of stability. Right? Doesn't that sound like a relationship, like a romantic relationship? Okay. The third one is someone to have fun with. So, someone to have fun with is a friend who doesn't come with the same types of obligations you have, like to your spouse or colleagues or to work or anything like that. It's someone you're able to have a blast and just be carefree. On that theory, I want to hear your opinion. Is it right? Does it sound like a relationship, like a partner, somebody you can depend on? I never thought of that, like in a relationship, like a platonic relationship, somebody that I can like depend on. I want to hear your thoughts.
So I think for me, and I'm coming from the perspective of I've like I'm 26, so I'm fairly young. But I've been single my entire adult life. And so I've had to depend on like friendships, amistades, really to have kind of like that companionship. So every single one you said, like I had somebody in my mind. um just yeah, like having to foster that, and I think that that isn't always taught. Like I think I had to learn how to be a friend, and I learned a lot of that when I was in undergrad. You're around people your age like all the time, or like friendship becomes like the main thing. And so that's where I felt like I really learned how to be a good friend. But yeah, I was just thinking as you were reading, I was like, yep, I know who fits that, I know who fits that.
So me and Juan were having a conversation just yesterday. We recorded a podcast, and I was telling him, and Carolina, maybe you can like touch on this, um, because you are married, right? One of the things that the conversation was that I was telling him, sometimes the relationship between me and you kind of hinders the relationship I have with other people. And I was telling him a story about like how we were out and about with a couple of other people, and I felt like I couldn't ask them for anything because I don't want to be dependent on them, right? Because I feel like if I asking for things, I'm expecting things, and I don't know if I can do that. So I feel like it hinders my relationship with other people, which is when I literally on here it says like someone you can depend on. I'm like I don't know how to ask for things, and I think it I don't know if that stems from my childhood or stems from like my relationships. I mean, ¿qué piensas?
Yeah. Well, what I'm thinking is maybe it's not like the whole thing of depending,
Mhm.
but somebody that's dependable in the sense like si te tienes que desahogar, right? Like if you have things that you have to like vent out, they're just there and you depend on them by them just listening to you, right? So not
Mhm.
always like favors and stuff. But going back to the whole relationship and hindering friendships, I think it has to do too with personalities, right?
No.
Like if you're an introvert or an extrovert. So like I'm the one that's, they say social butterfly or whatever. And then my husband is more the introvert. So like if I'm trying to be like, oh, let's meet up with these people or like, oh, let's go talk to so and so, he'll be like, oh, like really like calm it down. So then that goes into what you were saying, like it hinders, right? How I
Mhm.
want to do something or approach
Mhm.
certain people. But no, the list that you shared with us, I think, yeah, I was definitely thinking that too. Like, hey, I know, yeah, this is this person. That's my best friend.
Yeah. The next article that I wanted to, and I knew you guys were gonna, let's start off light, but here we go with this one.
Uh-oh.
All right. The article
Well, he just
is,
said, uh-oh.
I know, the article is why ending a friendship can be worse than a breakup.
Oof.
Eesh.
I know, right? And so it goes, here are like sort of like the bullet points. Let's see what you ladies think. It says, we don't know what to say. Friendships, breakups are a result of gradually growing apart. Some need to come to an end because of distance and different lifestyles.
Mhm.
2, we feel ashamed that we couldn't make it work. Some friendships breakups aren't discussed nearly as often as romantic relationships. Rather than seeking advice or support, they keep it to themselves. That can make it feel isolating. We have undeclared expectations with our friends. We declare expectations in other relationships and even have ceremonies, and that's not the case with friendships. It's hard to define platonic relationships. We don't communicate our expectations. 4, we don't know the terms of the breakup. With romantic relationships, we know if we cut ties or respectfully smile in social situations. That doesn't happen in friendship breakups. And lastly, the grief process is unexpected. We don't expect the heartbreak. The unforeseen trauma can make the pain all more palatable. You'll go through grief, and that's okay. It's common to feel anger, sadness, loneliness, anxiety about seeing the person, and fearful of the mutual friends picking sides. Have y'all ever had like a friendship breakup?
Oh my God. You definitely hit home with this one for me,
Yeah.
yo. Ah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But like you said, it's different because it's not like you're calling the person and saying, hey, our friendship is over.
Hmm.
It
How
just
did how did you deal with it? Like, how did you go about it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I do. I well, not
oh, you
call
do?
because yeah, because talking I think is a little bit harder, and I process things better in writing. But I think in my adult friendships now, like, so I would say like the past year, year and a half more so. when I feel, especially those really close like connections, like where it feels like something's off, right? Like I send them a message like, hey, I've noticed that we haven't been talking as much, and just kind of show my appreciation still for like the friendship. Um, it's hard. When you said friendship breakup, I was like, oof.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. I was like, oh
Did
man,
you?
I bumped into that one when I went back to New York. It was awkward.
So, but I want to hear about it. Like, I want people to hear about it. I've had a few. I definitely had a few, and there is fuck, the part about like you're fearful of people picking sides. I feel like there was one where I was just like, I know how this person's gonna be like on that side. I'm just gonna start letting go of like half a group that they just naturally go with that person. And even though some of them, like, I was I wanted to hold on to, but I feel like I couldn't hold on to them because they were already attached to something else. So I was mad. Like I was pissed that I couldn't. I don't know. Like like it's right. Like the article is right. You don't know what to do. Like what do you do? So do you really, really, really have a conversation with them? Like, who do you talk to? Your friend that isn't there anymore, or who picked the side? Like, what the fuck? You tell your husband, right? Or you tell like somebody else, or your parents, or you tell somebody, and they're like, "Get over it." Like, what the fuck are you? What are you going on and on about? Like, what's your loyalty to this person that like is so you're so like you're so about them, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, I had something with them, and I don't have it anymore, and I guess it's part of my past. I didn't even know it was going to be part of my past. And so it takes years to get over that shit, right? And you start to like you're like they didn't even like we weren't even romantic. Like there
Imagine
was
if you
no
were.
declaration. There was no like I mean there was no like I love you or we really sometimes you ever had a fight with a friend and you really don't have a fight with a friend, y'all just stop talking.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Can I fix this?" And you're like, too much time has gone by and you don't even fix it.
Yeah, well, like I said, so mine was like a mini novela because it was my BFF from like,
All right, Carolina, we got
no,
to
no,
hear a
your
little bit
short
about it
version.
without
So
names.
BFF growing up, and then in our 20s, our group of girls, this person ended up fighting with all of them except for me. So I was now that middle friend where I was still hanging out with the ones that she wasn't speaking to, but hanging out with her. So it got to a point where our friendship died out because there was a lot of that jealousy, right? Like, oh, you're hanging out with them, but you didn't tell me. Or, oh, you didn't tell me about this person, but yet you still talk to them. So my friendship just died out. And then I moved to Houston. So it wasn't like anything happened between her and I. But the messed up part that I feel is that everyone she connected, we're all still friends. And mind you, it's been like 30 years now. So I've,
She connected all of
yes.
y'all together?
So,
So she was the mutual friends that
yes.
connected y'all?
So when I went
Okay.
back to New York, and I know this is going into the podcast world, but when I went back to New
Yeah,
York,
yeah,
I
yeah.
bumped into her, and my first reaction was hugging her, which was
Oh,
awkward as fudge because I hadn't seen this person in what, 12 years or 10 that I had moved. And then we went about our way. Like she
Wow.
was like, "Oh, I need to go. I'm, like so and so is waiting for me downstairs," and she just went down. And I was like, "Yo, I'm an idiot. Like, why was my reaction to hug her?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she could have cursed me out, but
yeah.
she didn't. She just like, whatever." But again, going back to your thing, like it's awkward because it's not like I called her and said, "Hey, this isn't working out. We shouldn't talk anymore." It just died out, and it's like
Mhm.
sometimes I feel that I still grieve that friendship because nothing really happened. So you feel guilt, you
So
feel it's just weird.
Yeah.
how do you feel the void? How do you feel the void of that what that person used to do before? Do you just find other things to do? Like I want to cherish the fact that they are part of my past and I never want to forget that either. But I don't want it to consume my
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
today. So what do you like how do you go about like dealing with that? I mean,
I think it's just the same
how
thing
do
as
you go about
breakups.
it?
You just know that that relationship had an expiration and they weren't meant to be in your life. 'Cause
Mm.
you
You
know what I'm
know, with
saying? Like
breakups,
there's people that are put in
Yeah.
your path for certain things. And sometimes we don't realize that.
I was just gonna say that, like, I think there's a grieving process that happens, but it's interesting, Carolina, like in your story, because, like in New York, to run into like this person,
Probably she lives
and
in the
I'm a
same
big
building as we're
believer.
talking. That's why.
Oh, I
Say
was
it
gonna say
again.
I'm a big believer in like things happen for a reason, and
Yeah, yeah,
so
that too.
like to bump into
I was
her,
meant to give
and
her that
even
hug, and that's it.
so. Yeah, yeah, like, that hug might have been, like, your closure at the end of
Yeah,
the day, right? Like, it might have been, and the universe was just, like, offering that closure to you.
true. No, I didn't see it like that. Yeah.
So here's the difference with a romantic relationship. Like we can we can talk shit about them. Like we can be like, whatever, it didn't work out. Vaya su pinche, whatever. Like because it wasn't intimate relationships. But I feel like with breakups, you don't even want to talk about your like bad about your old friends. Like you're like, I don't even want to say anything. Like I don't even want to like allude to like something was wrong or that they had a character flaw in them because how would I know like if they did or didn't and you try not to allow yourself to do that, and I know y'all are like that too, where you try not allow yourself to like think bad about them. But how do you process the fact that you know who was wrong or who was in the right, or was it just like a fair split? Like I felt wrong in relationships before in the past. I feel like I put up more with friendships than I do with like romantic relationships. Maybe that's just me. In the past, I definitely have. Right now, I um, I try not to do that. I try to be very much like a part of the article. I try to be very much like this is my expectation. This is what I come with. Like I don't come with a lot. Um, or if I do come with a lot, I'll tell you. Like there's again, Diana and Carolina. Like with you guys, I come with a lot. Like Diana, I come heavy. Carolina, I come heavy. But there are some friendships that I don't. They're not surface level, but they're definitely not a place where I can like where you'll see me unhinge, basically, right? So with these relationships, but I like them. But so how do I avoid like being ugly? How do I avoid being like ruthless about my comments and hey, like we had a fight, we just bye. Like it has nothing to do with me, it has nothing to do with
Mhm.
you. Like I just gotta go. Like I gotta bounce. I don't want to be like that. How do you avoid that?
I think.
And that's a question for you ladies. Have you ever thought of it? And
Mhm.
do you see yourself in that situation?
I definitely have thought of that. I've talked about this in therapy before, actually. Like, being real. Because friendships like have a really deep meaning for me, and so, I think it depends on the depth of the relationship, right? And so, like, I have some friends, and I have two people in mind right now that like, the friendship breakup happened in 2021, and still to this day, like some morning, like this morning, actually, I woke up thinking of one of them, and I actually sent her a text message. I'm not gonna lie, this morning. So it's curious that you brought this question up today. Um, and I just sent her a message
Yeah,
like,
you gotta divulge. Let's
Yeah.
hear
Did
it.
this
What
person write back?
happened?
no, she didn't.
Yeah, right now I want to
But
know.
I didn't write with that intention of like
Yeah,
waiting to
yeah,
hear
yeah,
something
yeah.
back. And I don't like when people are like, you don't have to respond to the like I just kind of say what I have to say and leave it. And if they don't respond, like I have that agreement with myself. Um, but I feel like in the like towards the end there were moments where I wasn't a really good friend. And so I apologized, like owned up to that and just told her like I love you wholeheartedly, and like I siempre te deseo lo mejor. Like, and that's really what it is for me. Like with this person, we had such a deep connection. Um that I don't feel, even though we don't talk anymore, and maybe there were like some moments of frustration, I don't feel like there's ever a time in my life where, like, if we were to see each other, we wouldn't go for that embrace or we wouldn't like really hold space for each other because I think we just had that depth of a relationship. Um, but yeah, like I think it depends because then there's other like friendships that are a little bit more surface level where like you don't really go that deep, and so, things may kind of just sporadically like fall off. In those circumstances, like it happens, right? I feel like that's natural. Yeah.
That's a natural thing. So I had a group of artist friends that I really wanted to connect with. So when me and Juan were having like a really hard time through our relationship, um, And I was at the beginning. I was having a really hard time, and I was trying to find my way back. And then one of the few things that I did enjoy was doing art again. And so I found like an artist group that I really, really wanted to connect with, and they already had a really close bond. Have you ever been in that group of, or seen that group of people who just, it's like collective five of them, and that's it. They don't let anybody else in. They don't really like have like they don't really foster to more, or maybe they don't want to foster to more. And so now that I think back, none of them are friends anymore. And I'm like, like, so when you're so dependent on friendships, that can also happen, right? Where you're so dependent, and every day in, day out, Friday afternoon, Saturday, Sunday, where it's like, we're going to get together, and it's always something with them, right? And so that brings me into that, to that next this, I told y'all two articles, but I'm looking at one because I think this like leads into it. This is the article. It's called How to Get Out of a Friendship Rut. And the suggestions are: get to know your friend all over again. Let go of assumptions. Treat them as a new friend to get a fresh start. Would have never thought of that. I'd be like, no. Like, I know them personally, and that's it. Like, they're an asshole, then they're gonna be an asshole again. Honestly, to God. And then number two, it says, share yourself. The whole getting to know you thing is to a two-way street. Tell them about your pains, your dreams, fears, annoyances, as if it's a brand new thing. I have something to say that because it goes back to the conversation I had earlier where I didn't I don't know if I trust myself enough to like tell people like my pains, right? Diana, like you said earlier, like without the expectation of getting something back. But if I do and I become hurt, it's like, what do I do with that hurt? What do I do with that pain? I don't want to feel hurt. I don't want to, and especially by friends. Like, I can deal with hurt all sorts of ways because I'm dealing with traumas, right? So number three is allow for space. Sometimes they have other friends. Don't read too much into it. That means what it means for your friendships. And then lastly, it's be there when it's tough. If you sense something is going on, reach out. Friendships that weather growing pains only strengthened by them. But point on point. So, what do y'all think about getting to know your friend all over again?
I think the article is treating it like
I
dating your
know.
spouse. Like, right?
I
Like, okay, you've
know.
been with the same person for like 15 years, let's say, and you're losing like the sense of friendship or sense of anything. And the advice is, oh, well, go on dates with your spouse, try to reconnect. So that's what I'm hearing from the article.
Yeah. So, like, do you tell the friend, like, hey, like, I feel like we're not as close as we
Yeah.
should be. Can we like like vamp this
Yeah. And
relationship?
I mean, I've
Would that
done
feel
that
weird?
with long distance.
You
Well, with
have?
long distance friendships, because that's the thing. When I moved, I was like, oh, forget it. These people are never gonna like whatever. But no, it turned out that my group of five, how you said, my crew, we've all been there. And even if it's just a WhatsApp talk or we haven't talked in like 6, 8 months, we still catch up where we left off. But then again, it's like, what people to do that with. I think maybe, and then that's
Mhm.
another thing. I'm guilty of it. I throw the word around friend like it's money. Like, I don't know, like, oh, this is a friend. This is a friend. Friend, let's
I
go
like
hang
that she
out,
said.
But it's like, then, like you guys said, like, there's different levels, or, right? There's like friends that are,
Mhm.
what was it that Diana said?
Mhm.
Like service. So
Surface
it's
level,
like,
yeah.
Surface friends.
you're not going to treat that person the same way you would treat. So I don't know. It's complicated, bro.
Mm. I think this is part of a like larger conversation though about how like I feel like I learned how to become a friend once I was older. Like I think that and just kind of thinking and reflecting back on like the friendships that I saw like my family members hold, um it didn't feel like true friendship to me always. And so it wasn't until I like got older that I started to really explore friendship. And it's interesting because I would mirror and replicate like some of the ways that I heard like my family speak to their friends. And like that ended very badly for me, to be honest. Like if you would have known me freshman year of undergrad, like you would have been like, who, what? Like, sacada de onda,
Whenever you're
honestly.
Yeah,
talking to
well,
them,
who
Yeah,
knows,
yeah,
like
we
right?
gotta
exactly.
know.
Like like just sacada de onda. And I had to learn that, but I feel like we don't talk about enough about how like a friendship is like it's a form of a relationship. So everything pretty much applies in terms of like communication, setting boundaries, right? Like setting like dates up, right? Like hanging out. I think that like all of that applies, but we don't always talk about that.
No, we don't. So, sharing yourself, do you feel like there are some people in this world that know you? Know you? So I joke around and I say that I have a friend who I've known since I was like a teenager. So she's seen me do some fucked up shit, like real fucked up shit. Like I would be if I was to be scared of anybody, it would be of her. Because if she could write a book on the shit that I've told her and the shit that I've done, I'd be like, oh fuck that. Like I just like she knows me, she knows my character, like she knows who I am. But on the same token, I know exactly who she is too. Like I've seen her do some fucked up shit too. Like we could like it could be a mutual like thing. She's one of those friends that if I can't, that I can just sit like on a sofa with and not say a fucking word. Like to this day, like we've slept in the same beds. Like I know her kids. She knows my son. She knew me way before I even had my son. Like she's seen him like grow up into the person he is. So um so on that conversation, like we've sat down like at a table to like 2 3 in the morning talking about just our like not fears but like our deep thoughts. And I don't even remember what we were talking about, but I remember being like 2 3 in the morning having like a TV on in the background, sitting at the coffee table, sitting on the floor, and we're just like crying about shit. I don't remember what the fuck we were crying about, but I just remember crying. And so when I think about sharing those kind of like pains and dreams, does it come with time, or do you feel comfortable having met somebody like a year or two? I mean, don't do it like 2 months in, right? But like having knowing somebody for like a year or two, do you do that, or do you all even have friendships like that? Or
Mm,
I don't think it's just me. I've heard of friendships like this.
mhm,
Like, how much of you do you share? Is it when you get older you stop trusting how much you share, or you just
mm,
let them get to know your personality and your character?
I think it takes time and it just happens
mhm,
naturally.
mhm.
It just happens
Yeah, I
naturally.
feel
Yeah.
I
like
think
I
just
have
a
those
moment's
friendships
notice.
and they're friendships again of 15, 20 plus years. But then I have
Mhm.
friendships, like you. I spilled a lot of my stuff, emotional baggage on you very quickly, I think. But it's you just know, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And I for me, the friendship that I was thinking about when you were talking about that, like it's been a friendship of I think 6 years, and I don't think that we immediately were like, all fully open, but it definitely takes time. Um, and I think that now, like at this point in time of like 6 years, and she's seen me transition through several things in life. Like I feel comfortable still going to her and saying like, this shit happened today, like, or I fucked up in this way. Like, what do I do? Yeah, like I feel
Is
like
she more of a mentor than Diana?
no, I think it's just like I feel comfortable enough to just like to fully be like I fucked up, because I feel like
Mhm.
sometimes you can't always like fully admit that. But I think like a real deep friendship is when you can like come to the person and be like, this is where I messed up, like in any aspect of life. And just kind of like you said, bouncing ideas off, like thinking about it and just kind of like venting it out.
Yeah.
Mm. So lastly, so the last one, be there when it's tough.
Mm.
If you sense something is wrong, reach out. Friendships, whether only strength. So be there when it's tough. When you hear that, what do you think?
For me is yeah, being there in the hard moments when there's pain present in someone's life, which I think is a natural part of the human experience, is at some point we're gonna feel or be in a hard place, and just being there.
So I've shared this with you guys, and y'all didn't know me before this, or you did, and maybe it was in a very small way, but um, actually no. So I like going through the loss of my sister was like tough, right? going through like the entirety of like my mental health, which was tough. Going, have y'all ever, what was your experience watching a friend go through that that was like life changing, whether it was a divorce, loss of a parent, a sibling, a child, or seeing them lose a job that they really wanted, or going from like even social like economics, right? Going from like being doing something that they really want or love, or being fired where they look like they're distraught and something's not okay. Or have y'all ever experienced that, and how did you handle it?
So I did, and the difficulty I had sometimes was where you're giving advice or you're helping them, but they're still not doing what's needed to better the situation. Right? Does that make sense? Like, so we're going through a problem, and as a friend, you're there, you're listening, you listen. But after a year, after two, after three, the same thing over and over and over again, I realized that I had to treat that maybe the way that a parent would treat a child, like let them learn on their
Mm,
own. Like, stop giving advice, just
mm,
listen. And if they fuck up, they fuck up, but at least you still supported them.
mhm,
So that's how I've done things with my friends, where if I see that they're not taking action, then it's just like, all right, you know what? They're gonna learn on their own, but I'm still gonna listen. I can't be here and be like, oh, shut up, you're repeating the same thing. Because then that's not me being a friend either. I mean, I'll call
mhm.
you out on your stuff just like they do to me, but sometimes you just gotta let it be.
You gotta let
Let
it
them, yeah,
is what it
uh-huh.
is. Let it be where it may be. Or so was it like, was it big, like a situation where it was big, where you're like, okay, because I don't know, like now that I think back on like the experiences that I had, I can't I can't really tell you who was there for me. I mean, no. I'm lying. I can't tell you who was there for me. Um, and so I can tell you I was mad at some people, not because they weren't there for me, but because they just didn't show up. They just like, I just needed to see your face. Like that would have been enough for me to see your face, like show up. And so when I seen some people show up for me, I didn't expect anything. And that, I think that's my problem. Maybe that's a childhood trauma. I didn't expect anything out of anybody. I was like, okay, well, here we go, Angelica again. Here's the pain coming, Angelica. You better hold steadfast and hold on to dear life, because this shit's gonna take you, like, it's gonna take you for a really fucked up ride that you don't want to be on. Like, you're like, get me off this fucking train. I don't want to be here. But when I seen familiar faces, I don't remember a lot. I can just remember, I don't remember the conversations I had. I don't remember shit, but I remember
Hmm.
faces.
But don't you
Um,
say that not
I remember
expecting is a good thing? Because you're saying that you don't
I,
expect anything from people. In cambio, I think
yeah,
I'm the
I
opposite.
don't.
Sometimes I feel like I expect too much, and then that's when I'm let down.
Well, I feel like there's a loneliness that comes with
Both, yeah,
expectation,
yeah.
because you always feel like you feel let down. And but like you're all expecting already that you're gonna feel let down. And so when they let you down, when you reach out and they let you down, you're like, well, yeah, that's what I expected. I'm gonna, I don't know. Then I go down these roads of like, I'm gonna, por eso estoy como soy. I'm gonna die alone. I'm gonna fucking but I don't remember like who was there. I mean, I don't remember who said what or if they said anything. I remember the faces, the familiar faces I seen. There was faces that I seen at my sister's funeral and things like that. I didn't give a fuck to fucking see. I would have been very happy had they not fucking shown up actually. But in terms of like help and support on my end, there were people there that I didn't know for so long, that still are like kind of around, and they're going through things too, right? They're like heavy things, and I'm trying to be there, but I know they're like experiencing, like single life, and I'm like, okay, I need to like, right? I'm gonna hang out with you, and we're gonna have a really good time, but I'm not trying to be like, um, I got to be very considerate of like my relationship, right? I can't go hang out with you and a bunch of
Yeah,
guys.
but then
That's
that's
not a
the
thing
one
I
where
can
you
do.
can show up and be the friend that's like just texting in the morning or like, hey. Not the one that's going out clubbing with them all the time.
Okay, maybe I should do more of that, Catalina. Actually, I should probably text and be like, "How's
Yeah,
it been?
like,
How
yo,
are
just checking up
you?"
on
You
you.
know?
What's up? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, going back to that conversation of tough, have you been on the opposite like end of things where things got rough for you and you were like, okay, I need, because I know like some of your ladies like toughness, right? You moving away and coming down here to Arkansas, Diana, and you got Olina moving down from New York and coming down here, and then having to let or feeling like you had to like push away a job to be able to
Mhm.
take care of your family, and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Like, who's here for me?
Mm.
Do you ever felt like that's ever been like a thing that people weren't necessarily maybe there, or would you like them to show up a little bit differently?
Mm.
I know that's a loaded question because it can be anybody listening to this podcast at this point.
Well, I think for me, and just kind of to respond to the last one, when I've been in a situation where a friend was going through something, for me, it's been about like just holding space for them in whatever way that looks like, and meeting them where they're at. Um, and then in return, I feel like I've gotten that from like the close friends that I'm thinking of. But moving down here was really hard, and still feels very lonely to be here. And I think like my close homegirls in Chicago, like they know that, right? So they'll check in on me, like they'll send me a message, like, buenos dias, hope that you have a good week, right? Like they'll check in on me. And together, like we both do that, right? But that has been very helpful. And then, having like FaceTime dates, things like that. It helps.
FaceTime dates, that's a new one.
Yeah,
Pandemic term.
seriously. That's
Yeah.
long distance friendship.
Yeah, well, ours is WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp conversation that's been open, I think, since 2016. We were all talking about it the
Oh,
other day. We're
mm,
like, damn,
that's awesome.
I think
2016,
so, or
8 years,
17. Yeah,
almost 8 years, 7 years for
yep.
sure.
Yeah,
It was
that's
crazy.
awesome.
And we're all in different parts
Yes.
too: New York, PA, Colombia, Guatemala.
Dang,
Yeah, girl.
y'all all over the
Everybody
place.
peaced
Yeah.
out.
Everybody was out.
They faced out for
But
New York.
yeah, but going
I
back,
thought New Yorkers never
but
left
going
New
back
York.
to you were saying that those are good friendships, but they
Mhm.
do affect the way that you try to find new ones when you move.
Mm,
And how?
So like Diana, right? Like moving, it's like you meet different people and you're like, oh, we clicked, but then you expect that relationship to mimic one that you already have. And when it doesn't,
mm,
I feel like that's where I've been let down.
Mm.
mm,
Because it's harder. I don't
mm.
know. It's like it's harder making friendships now, I think, like as older.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
curious that you
or
say
It's
that.
harder.
yeah, or maybe
Oh, go ahead.
even not so much older, but also the city.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like for instance, like I live in the burbs now. I was used to living in like the city where you're walking, bumping into people, eating and like talking to a stranger next to you. Here in Houston is like, all right, I gotta drive, I gotta go network at a place that's offering you network.
Mm.
I gotta meet someone, then I gotta like Instagram them, I'm like, when did this shit get so complicated, bro? Like, let me just bump into you. Oh snap, I like those shoes. Oh shit, give me your number. Let's exchange numbers and hang out. Like that's how it used to be, you know? Now it's like, let me go. Oh, it's too much.
That's so funny.
Let me go stalk you on
Yeah,
Instagram real
like
quick. Let me
I
see
don't
what's up.
know. I don't know.
It's like you can't find out if somebody's crazy just by finding out they're crazy. You find out they're crazy before you even like,
Yeah,
you stalk them a little. You're like, maybe that's not gonna
but
work.
that's what I'm saying. But then that doesn't let you really meet the person because you're
Mm.
already like
Mm.
assuming, or there's always an interest now. I feel. I don't know. It's
Mm.
a hot mess. It's a hot mess out
Oh, I don't like that one. I don't
Mm.
like that one. I don't like when you feel like they're being your friend for like
there. Like yeah, like I don't know.
Interest.
benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're- like they see something that you can help them with,
or
and
the
you're like,
opposite. They don't see
well,
anything.
Mm.
And you're like, and
oh,
then I mean, I felt it when I'm like, okay, okay, I don't bring you think I
or
don't bring nothing because you don't see it, but it's okay.
it's
Don't
okay.
worry about it.
Or they feel like you don't bring it, but then you're like, okay, that's fine. And then y'all start to follow each other on social, and then maybe they see something
Yeah,
and they want, and
yeah,
they
yeah, yeah. I've
reapproach you.
gotten that.
They reapproach you, and you're like, bruh, like you're making
Mm,
this obvious. I don't even want to help you at this
mhm.
point. Had you been upfront from the beginning or been
That or just
genuine,
ask.
this would be
People
different.
like talk.
Yes.
Like, hey, what did you do? What do you
Yeah.
like doing? Like one question that I always ask is like, where are you from? And some people are like, oh, I'm from
Mm,
Houston.
Hmm.
I'm like, well, no, sis, like where are you from? Like, are you eighth generation from Houston? Fine, I'll take that. But like, I don't know. I like to know more about people, you know? But,
mm.
I don't know. Yeah, this conversation is going in for another topic because
No, this is a good conversation,
Yeah,
no, because
yeah.
this gets to know like the personalities. Like I know between you, you Carolina and Diana. Diana, did you want to like say anything? I know.
and
I was
you're
just gonna say,
younger
'cause
too.
coming here, yeah, so coming here and trying to meet people, I mean, first of all, it's a lot smaller than Chicago, so Imma just start there, but
Mhm.
a lot of people, know, and this is something that I really don't like, to be honest, but a lot of people know me because of my work, and to me, like, coming from a big city, I'm like, "I'm Diana outside of work, like, talk to me different, please, like, what the talk?" And so I think that that's been a challenge for me because then there's like kind of that mixing, whereas like
Mm,
just get to know me, right? Like I'm not a representative of like what I'm always doing, right? So um yeah, so I think that's been really hard. And then I think that in this area, you tend to find more like families. It's harder to find like people in kind of like my age range. And I feel like the folks that like are in this kind of range, they've already kind of closed up into their own friend groups. But Carolina, I'm the kind of person that I will walk up to somebody and be like, I love your shoes. What's your phone number? Like, let's kick it. So I still do that actually.
Yeah, yeah, me too. But like I said, some
Yeah.
people haven't been like I said, it's like I don't know,
Yeah.
it's too much, I guess. But then what you said, I feel like that's a city thing. Like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
city vibe, you
uh,
know? So then sometimes when I've
that's
done
a
it here
big
in
city
Houston,
thing.
it's like, oh yeah, you're welcoming and you're friendly, but it's like I don't know you
Hmm.
or you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know. It's like I've even tried like what is it meeting somebody up, right, or meeting a couple people like, hey, let's go get lunch, hey, let's go
Mhm.
get coffee, and it gets to a point where it's like, bro, am I begging to like meet up with you because there's no
Mm.
response, or they'll be like, oh, let me check my schedule. So it's like
Right.
I don't know, I'm not doing good with adult like friendship right now, bro. I'm
No.
like, just say yes or no, that's it, I'm good, but don't be like, oh yeah, maybe, oh let me check my schedule, like yeah. Just say no, that's it. It's like,
I'll send you my
I
calendar.
feel like
Pick a time.
if
No,
you don't have to just say no.
no, I get it. I get it. I am definitely on that. So I know the suburbs are definitely like different from Houston people. Like I'm a city girl. Like I was like I'm like all of fucking 5 minutes away from like downtown. So that whole like concept of like I love it when they do it here when they're like, "Oh, I like your outfit." I'm like, "You are not from the area. Absolutely not. Nobody talks like that
Yeah.
around here." Uh, so I very much I'm like, "Thank you." And I just start into conversation and we start to talk and I allow it cuz I keep going, right? And I'm like, "Look, I'm open. I'm open to receive like I'm in a place and a time in my life where I'm okay, where I'm not taking care of like I'm not cooking dinner. I'm not like taking care of Edgar or mentally I'm in a place where I'm okay with having friendships or I just like you know how you're in a state of mind sometimes like in etapa de life where those etapas you're like I have a lot going on and I don't have I'm very limited on time and mental space, right? Right now I'm in a time in a period of my life where I'm available. I'm making myself fucking available because I have taken off 10 years. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of making surface friends. I'm tired of doing all of that. And so when I go in with people and I'm like, do you want to be my friend? Or like, this is who I am. This is what I have to offer. And they're like, oh, we can just be surface level. Okay. Absolutely. I no degree of anything. So there's two cousins here, right? And one of them like I kind of know her but a little bit but she doesn't really allow herself to be talked to like go in depth too much. She kind of like she's not shy but she like brushes it off and I'm like cool, that's okay. And then you have the other side of the other cousin who is kind of guarded, but she lets it down sometimes. And I'm like, I don't know if that's on purpose with me, but the other day I was like, Let me do dinner with you, please, because I want to get to know you." And she was like, "Why do you want to get to know me?" And I was like, "Look, do you want to have dinner with me or not? Yay or nay? Like, I'm not asking you for your hand in marriage, ma'am.
Right.
Like, are you open to friendship or not?" And I remember, by chance, she happened to say she was starting to introduce me to some of the people because we ended up at a like a this hype disco party thing that we ended up at, right? And so she started introducing me to some of the people that she knew, and she goes, "Yeah, this is a strong woman. This is a strong woman." She goes, "I can't stand weak women." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know how to take that. I don't know what you consider me." I was like, "But I dig, yeah, I dig my weak women because you'll be surprised at how fucking strong they are."
Mhm.
But I didn't know how to take that, and I was like, "Is that a dig at me?" And so I started second guessing the whole thing. I was like, "Okay, Angelica, this probably ain't got nothing to do with you." But then she was giving me really good advice, like the whole time. She got a few drinks in her, and then it was like, "I can't stand weak women." I was like, "I'm not trying to date you." what?
Oh
So,
man.
so that's what's going on with me out here in friendships.
Mm.
You ladies want to add anything?
No, just that they're hard, yo.
Yeah, it's hard.
Okay. As that we've been talking for quite some time. I thought we were gonna be here for like 20 minutes, and I just went on and on and on. You know what? I can't stand y'all because y'all are the two that I like to talk to. Y'all are the two that I really, really. I mean,
We need to learn
I
how to
love
shorten it
Jacqueline, and
then.
I love Sonia. Yeah, no, it's because Sonia and Jacqueline, they're like work friends, and
Yeah.
you two, like, I know y'all, I know y'all, I know y'all. We need to have like a whole like sit down like podcast, and then each one of us brings like a topic because I
Yes.
think,
Yeah, I
yeah,
like I
yeah,
like the vibe. I like the bouncing off.
I do. Yeah, y'all are a whole other
And
species here.
Diana's a
Bueno,
youngin.
yeah,
You
I
make me
know,
feel
dude.
old, bro.
When I
She's
hear
like
her, when
26.
I
I
hear
was
her
like,
struggle
"Ooh,
about friendships,
like I'm
when I
38.
hear her
Two
talk about
months.
friendships, I think about like my who I was like back in the day, and I was like, Diana, it's like she's young with an old soul, and I'm like, holy shit, she keeps up. Like I'm like, there's a lot of people who like they're like, nah,
Yeah.
like that's old people problem. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
we'll see you soon because it happens then, sir.
I feel like
But I thought that.
when you live a lot of life in a short amount of time, you have that.
Yeah, that too.
So, what do you think of the conversation so far? Aren't they amazing? Don't they have a lot more insight, a lot more perspective on conversations? I love these new co-hosts that I have along with me, and yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the conversations that they're going to have on here. Also, I'm looking forward to what they're going to say, what the outcome might be. I'm excited for this new year. And I hope you're really enjoying these conversations. If you like this podcast, the new and improved and revised portion of the Latina Leadership Series, please go give us a like, go give us a comment, a share, or subscribe. Subscribe to the Apple Podcast on any platform or any platform for that matter that you're hearing this on. And yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hi, and welcome back. As y'all know, I've introduced already my co-host. We've had a one-on-one conversation. We've had the other conversation with the other co-host, and on this conversation, I have my co-host now, Jacqueline and Sonia, joining me for today's conversation. I know I said conversation like 10 different times, and I apologize about that. But um, thank you, ladies, for like joining me today and taking the time to talk to me today. But I definitely wanted to do one more follow-up conversation again, so we can have the listeners and viewers get to know you guys a little bit better on maybe thoughts or do we align with them? Do we like what we're seeing, or do we? And I definitely want y'all to want to have fun. I want you to feel comfortable. And I know this is part of that project is allowing y'all to feel much more comfortable with topics or conversation between other guests. So if you ladies don't mind, we'll jump right in.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a list. I've been having a running list of kind of conversations that I've been wanting to have for a while. So let's dive deep into some of those topics. Bueno, okay, here we are. So when I had the conversation with Diana and Carolina, we touched on topics about friendships. And I haven't had the opportunity just yet to like extend that conversation with you ladies. I know we have much more of a working relationship for sure, but I know what kind of working relationship I have with you ladies. And I admire y'all and the work that y'all like. Y'all are diligent, very, um,
Thank you.
very
Thank
much
you.
somebody that I look forward to working with every day on the projects that I have. And I know that things are going to be, um, that they're going to be like looked after. You know what I'm saying? So on that topic of how people support us, I wanted to ask you ladies, how do you feel as a Latina? Because we talk about Latinas and Latina leadership here. And I know I'm driving right into it. Like we already did small talk and chat, but I'm diving right into it. How can individuals, whether that's in your household, in the workspace that you're in, how can individuals help support you as a Latina? So I guess the question would be phrased as, how do we, or how can others help support Latinas in which ways?
And when you say others, you mean like
Maybe those who aren't Latinos, maybe those who are
your
Latinos, yeah, or
like society, or like people at work, or your bosses, or family, like just all of it?
all of it. Take one and run with it because I know there's moments where we don't feel supported. How do you
Yeah.
feel like you can feel supported, and where is it at?
Um,
I know it's a heavy question.
that's a good question. I
Mhm.
think if I'll jump in. I feel like just because like as a new mom, now I have like a new perspective about just work life balance, and just everything. um, I think not just as a Latina, but like as a woman, I think just like having like good what is it? I have pregnancy brain. Maternity leave. Like having a good, like if the state of Texas, or even the United States, as a whole, being more supportive of working moms.
Mm,
um, I think especially, um, Latinos are known for like having like very strong family ties and family values. So even like caregivers, I know, Sonia, you take care of your father sometimes, and it's like, that's really important to us as family. So I feel like having that support, and I guess respecting that about Latinos, and women and people in general. Family's a big deal. So I think a lot of us, we don't want to sacrifice that family time. Um, some people, they go to work and they want to get away, and that is okay. um, but for me, like, in my opinion, like, I think just coming from like a big company before this, I can see the difference, like in the culture, you
Mhm.
know, um, coming from some place that wasn't supportive to now a place, an environment that is very supportive. I think I see like the difference. So that means a lot to me. Yeah. And you and Juan are like so supportive, and I appreciate that.
oh, we definitely appreciate you, Jacqueline. I hope you know that. Um, but thinking about like so would you say that Latinos are like, Jacqueline, would you say Latinos are loyal? Like there's this commonality that I was telling somebody, explaining to this, and I don't know if I explained it earlier before, if I said this already, but we tend to have a loyalty first to like our family and then ourselves second. So like it's hard. It's hard to support the Latina when you don't know who you're supporting. If you're supporting the family as a whole, or if you're supporting the Latina. But when you separate the Latina from that, how do you help support her? Like, what was it that your job could have done differently?
Yeah, I think first, you have to know your own self first, right?
Mm,
Everyone's different. And I think sometimes, even just like as women, like we tend to put others first, just because like
Mhm.
um I don't know if it's just like an innate thing or if we're also raised like that because of, um, just how gender roles are. Women are usually more the caregivers. We're very maternal, and I think some of that is definitely like innate. Um, so I think we tend to, it just kind of, we don't think about it. We're we think about the details. We think about the small things. Are you comfortable? Are you hungry? You have everything you need, and then it's, you finally sit down and you're like, oh, I'm hungry. I haven't had water today, I'm making sure everyone else has water. I don't have water. um, I think that's important though. Like when you're working and busy, sometimes you forget like to take care of yourself. I don't know. What do you think, Sonia? Because you're a journalist. Like I'm sure you have busy moments like that.
I do know I can definitely relate with like drinking water or even eating lunch. It's like you just get so busy. It's like before you know it, it's like 4 o'clock and I didn't eat lunch. So I guess I'm just going to eat dinner tonight, one meal. You go from, having your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, if you don't be careful, you only end up with one meal a day, and that's not good. But there's nobody, unfortunately, there telling you, like you said, did you drink water, or did you get up and exercise? Because the worst thing you can do also is just sit there and not take a break. So I'm really bad with taking a breaks. But I'm fortunate too that my daughter, I have my daughter, she'll come and remind me, and she'll say, hey, Mom, did you take a break? Or she'll bring me water or something just to help me out if she knows that I'm working on a deadline or something. So in that sense, I'm fortunate. But just to like piggyback on what you were saying, it's like just I would wish more people would listen to us, like really listen to what we're saying, because um, sometimes you could be sitting next to somebody that's like totally broken. But if you listen, you can hear they're tired, they're overwhelmed. If you're paying attention, and then, you can try to call them or encourage them or help them. But I think that's, I don't know, I don't want to say but trait, but it's kind of like being very perceptive. Like I can tell when my friend is like, there's something wrong. I hear it in your voice. Or my daughter is like, no, there's something wrong. I know you. You need to tell me what's going on. But nobody's doing that for us. So it's like we fall through the cracks. But if people would listen, like listen to our concerns everywhere in the workplace, if people are listening and paying attention, maybe those relationships would be better instead of, people, you know, because what is that saying? People don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. And unfortunately, I've experienced that in my lifetime because there was a boss that really didn't care about the employees. They were just like tunnel vision, I guess. But when you care about and I've been in places where the manager cares about the employee and the employees work so much better. And it makes such a difference when people are listening and they care about you. They ask about your family. They ask how you're doing. If, something's going on, if maybe your mom is sick or you're sick, you're having surgery. And if you show that compassion, I think it makes you feel more, apt to
Valued.
want to work with them, and want to do, want to be there, and it's so important. I think just to listen to people, and
I agree.
not just put yourself in their shoes when you can, and then
Yeah.
I think we'd understand each other better.
Yeah, I think empathy comes in mind, when you say that, because it's like, um, that's like one of the big things, right? Everyone's talking about empathy,
Mhm.
and the company I was at before, like before I left, that was one of the things they were having classes on, is like take an empathy class, like read this book on empathy. We're going to read it as a group and talk about it. And it's like, for some people, it comes natural, to just check on someone to see how they're doing. Hey, you don't seem like you're okay, to notice those things, that's empathy, um, and some people it doesn't come naturally, and that's okay. But as long as you're like thinking about it, like, okay, this is something I need to work on. I think you know companies can definitely get better at like supporting women and Latinas.
And I definitely agree the difference between being like in a corporate world and being in a smaller environment. I mean, this is like I was telling Angelica in another interview we had, that this is like a dream because, they're, it's like you can't, I want to pinch myself. It's like they really understand about my dad. They really understand, that, I'm a caregiver and some days are easy, some days are not, and, they really appreciate, the work that we're doing. And it shows because, the great things that we're doing, the great things I've seen happening, and to be a part of a team like this, it's like, I can't believe that it exists because I've been so like, I guess I don't want to say brainwashed, but I've just seen more of the negative that I'm just waiting for the bottom to fall out. I don't know if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
it's,
I
I
think
feel like
you see the
supervisors have
extreme,
to
the
be
other side.
careful because you ingrain that and people take that with them. It's like PTSD, it's like you get PTSD from some jobs and
That
managers.
is absolutely true. I mean, I remember having nightmares for years after some of the most stressful jobs I've had, and that's PTSD. You know,
Mhm.
because you carry that stress with you even after it's like you still have these like memories.
Mhm.
I had this job once years ago when I was in college, and at one point it got so stressful like my chest would hurt
Hmm.
because that's how much anxiety and stress I felt and just in my body.
Mhm.
um but yeah, it's when you're in a good environment you can feel you when you're supported, you feel
Mhm.
the difference.
Mhm.
You feel a difference. You want to work, you want to show up, you want to do good work, you look forward to another day. you
Mhm.
know so yeah, you definitely can feel a difference for sure.
See how I'm listening to you ladies, and first of all, thank you so much. Um, and then two, I hear that conversation pick up about the stress that you take home. And the only time I've ever felt like I've taken any stress with me was after my sister got sick and the passing of my sister. Like I carried that on like weight. It like I couldn't shed it. Like I couldn't, no matter how hard I tried. Like I really wanted to like. But then when you think about it, and you're so, especially for some Latinas who are so dependent on that, on wanting to help, and they know they do good work, but then why does it have to come with stress? Why does the money have to come with a stressor like that? That can ultimately like harm your health in such a big way, in such a big impactful way. Um, so it's not about like allowing it to like it's not about like allowing, I guess I hear the conversation, like it's not about allowing the women to just kind of take on the give them more to do so we can then be kind of like equal, because we think men stress out and that's what like makes us better workers. But it's more about like how can we like deduct the stress, right? How can we grow better managers to then grow better leaders, so like that other people like do better and do well within their existence of their workplace. So if you could like change, like maybe thinking back about the jobs that you even have today or you've had before in the past, like what was one thing that you could have easily been like, you know what, that could have just changed? Like the workload of like, I got to take it to, manager A, B, C, and D have to all look at this, and all of that stresses me out. What if you look back on your job, what was one thing that you could say, I would change this part? Because that was so unnecessary, or you just put on too much work, right? I know there's protocols, and we all have protocols because we all have to, we want to make sure that the work is good. But then some of them are just implemented to like take up space and time. So, bouncing that question, what would you say you would shift or do differently if like you had your manager's job or something? I don't know, just making up a scenario, but I'm curious.
I think just going back to the company I came from, and I won't say the name, but just
It's like,
look on my LinkedIn if you want to know.
I'm gonna look.
You can find Jacqueline on LinkedIn.
All about in the company I came from, it's big. It's a big company, and um, your experience can all just depend on the department you land in. You never know when you're going to land in a toxic one, because some people they're really nice in an interview. You don't realize, they're like, ooh, not so good, in regular life. Um, so I guess going back to the first department that I worked for in that company, um, I was very proud of the work I did and very confident in my position. But I think I did not have managers who listened to me, like going back to what you were saying, Sonia, who trusted me and who valued my work. And number one, they should have absolutely they should have seen the value in my work and not taken it for granted. And they should have absolutely given me not only a promotion, but just um, lay off the micromanaging, because I did have one manager who was definitely a micromanager. And I think that was just his nature, to be kind of anal about things. But if he would have stepped off and given me that freedom to really take ownership and run with things and make decisions, um, I think they would have seen like, wow, we made the right decision. Like, everyone is happier, but because management at that time, they were just, I think they were just kind of micromanagers, very wanting to control every aspect instead of letting the employees kind of flourish and, give them freedom to lead, lead their team and make decisions. And so I think, and they lost me for that reason, because they did not value me. And looking back, I'm so glad that I left when I did, because I was burnt out, and I think if I had been valued as an employee, I would not have gotten burnt out, because I would have been comfortable saying, hey, I think I need a break, or, and I think had I felt like they even cared, about my mental health or about my workload, I think things would have gone differently. Um, so, so yeah, I would definitely, that's one job that I definitely look back on and I'm like, yeah, I would definitely, if I was in the management position at that time, I would have done things very differently.
Any follow up with that, Sonia?
Yes, it's funny that you say that because that's the same issue I ran into with a few jobs is the micromanaging, and I don't know what it is about some supervisors that they just want to say they just want to have their hands on everything, but then they get on to you because you're not doing this, but you can't do this and this because you need them to sign off on something, but they won't let you. And then when you do present it to them, oh, okay, but then they switch it all up, or I don't know. I've had some, and I also won't say who they are, but I've had some that just drive me nuts. I mean, it's just like I can't work like this. I mean, either you trust me or you don't. It's like a relationship. It's a give or take. Either you know that I can do the work and you trust me, or it's not going to work. And unfortunately, my first job was amazing. I worked at Univision for like 17 years, and I had an amazing boss and team, and they set the bar high. So that's a plus and a minus because everywhere I went after that, I thought, oh, it's going to be the same. Y poquito a poquito, I started realizing there's not a lot of bosses like my boss. There's more bad managers than good managers. Unfortunately, that's been my experience. I've had
I agree.
very few. I can count on one hand how many good managers I've had, and it's like now three with you guys because I think
Thank you.
and one are great.
That's
But
the
Yes.
it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they need to take their training that they're offering. They need to take training, or I don't know what's the solution, but it all goes back to listening, I think, and empathy, and then just really understanding who's working for you and being there, because at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all humans. I mean, okay, yes, you have this title, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're both going to be in the same grave. We're both going to be, we can't take nothing. We can't take our titles, so
Oh,
why be that way? Why not be a more, uh, I don't know. I keep saying empathetic. So
mhm.
a more understanding, a more inviting manager that makes you excited to wake up and go to work. Because if
Yeah.
it's a job, or what's that saying that they say, if you enjoy it, it's not a job. I don't know exactly how that saying goes, but
But
something
I've
about
heard like when you enjoy your work, you don't feel like you have to work hard. You know, when you
um,
love what you're doing, you know, I've
yes,
heard that too.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
that's a
I
really
think
good.
there's a difference for sure.
I like that. Really, that was a really good perspective on both. Before, like, let you ladies go. I have one last question for you, ladies, and let's see how we interpret this one. My question to you is, how do you start to overcome your fears? And so, what I want to get a little bit is, what was the fear? Did you overcome it, or are you still working on it? But how did you start, or how do you start, or how do you anticipate to start?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, For me, it was to believe in myself, that I can do a job, and not being afraid to try different different opportunities, that are going to advance my skill set, or give me new opportunities to grow. Because we never stop learning.
Mhm.
We're always constantly learning at whatever age. But I think for me, it's just to believe that I can do things, and not say I'm going to do this and then drop it by the road. you know um, I think that's just been my biggest Achilles heel, is that I have all these ideas, or I have all these, things that I want to do, but I think fear of failing, maybe, or it's not going to work out, so why do it, is what I'm working on, because I'm working on a children's book that I really, really want to materialize. So I claimed it for myself this year. I wrote the
Mhm.
first draft, so it's just there, but I need to go back and, make it, I don't want to say perfect, but just make it good, so I can send it to an editor, and see, if I can move it along. But that's like a big, like, I can't do that. Who do you think you are? You can't be an author, but, why not?
That's
Why not?
amazing.
Absolutely.
So, but that's me, as fear, and I'm still working on it. It's like still believing that I can do big things.
Mm, that's amazing. So, is your fear overcoming just doing it, like just putting it out there into the world?
I think so. Because like I mentioned, I am an introvert.
Hmm.
When I need to be, I can be an extrovert. Like
Hmm.
if I have to go to an event, or if I have to, I've been on TV. I've had interviews, but right after, it's like I have to come home and I have to be like, I have to rest, because that took a lot out of me. I don't know if that makes
Oh,
sense, but,
yeah. No, it makes
but
sense.
Yes.
It absolutely makes sense. Jacqueline, can I get your perspective on that? I mean, because I do want to touch back on that, Sonia, but Jacqueline, can I get your perspective on that?
So yeah, overcoming fear. I think from like a very young age, I mean, even like 2, 3 years old, I can recall being a very anxious kid, a very in a so I've always dealt with anxiety and fear, and I have always I've always allowed fear to stop me from doing something. I have big dreams. I always wanted to be like a singer, recording artist, an actress, like a gymnast, so many things I wanted to do. And with singing, I have horrible stage fright. I mean, bad
Mm.
stage fright. Where like I'll get knots in my stomach. I'll be sick right before a performance. My knees will be wobbly. I'll have a cold sweat. Um, but when I'm on stage, it's like, you know, and I start singing or performing, it's like everything changes. I get lost in that performance, then it comes out. But for me, I think having attention on me like that, having the spotlight on me, people watching me, has always been like a huge, like, draw, I guess, I don't know, obstacle for me to overcome, so like, I'm an actress, and so I kind of stopped for like maybe 10 years, like in my 20s. I kind of stopped because I felt like the business wasn't really picking up in Houston. Now it is, thanks to the pandemic, actually. Um, but I was always afraid of having a social presence, like social media, like having a public page. I just got a public page on Instagram, and it's like I've always been afraid to put myself out there. It's been a huge thing, and when I finally got like into my 20s, I realized I don't want to be a recording artist, but I do want to write songs for artists. I'm a songwriter as well, and so um, you know, I think for me, I'm in my 30s now, and I'm finally like getting comfortable putting my face out there, putting my voice out there, putting my work out there. I'm finally just getting comfortable doing that, and so now it's like, something that I'm embracing, and instead of like hiding, making everything super private and like, no, I don't put my son's face out there like in public, like on my public profile, but I don't mind sharing my work now. And so as work picks up and I get more work, as far as like singing or acting, like I don't mind sharing it now. And it's just always been a fear of mine. I have really bad social anxiety. I'm just like, I'm the same like you, Sonia. Like when I come back from an event, a social event, I come home and I need to decompress. I need to like regain my energy because it's really draining. I love social events. Because I can talk to people and when I need to, but it does drain me. Because I'm an introvert. But yeah, I would say that as far as like fear, like that's always been something that I've always tried to overcome. You know, um, I consider myself a spiritual person, and faith is really important to me. And I remember, I forget who, but I heard this one time from a preacher. He was like, fear, it stands for like false evidence appearing real. And I always thought about that because I was like, oh yeah, that's a good way to like get me out of my head, when I'm afraid of something, false evidence appearing real. Like, okay, so when
Let
I'm
me write that
afraid,
down. False evidence appearing real.
yeah.
Right? I need to do
Please remember that, listeners. Fear. False evidence appearing real.
And then
Okay.
like this other preacher who I love, Joyce Meyer, she would say, do it afraid, just do it afraid, and I love that. And that I still say that to myself, do it afraid. Like, when I get that cold sweat coming, I'm just like, okay, come on, Jack, do it afraid. Um, you got to pump yourself up sometimes and give yourself that pep talk. Um, so yeah, for me, that's, something like, I have my good days where I'm confident, and then I have days where I'm just like, man, holy cow, I need to like really pump myself up for this. So, yeah, I think giving yourself a pep talk, and yeah, because, you know, the emotions that come with fear are very
God,
real,
I know. Yeah.
even though like what you're afraid of might not be real, it's like the emotions are very real. You feel all that, you feel the feels, um, so yeah, for me, that's been like a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Jacqueline, I've taken notes. Like I'm taking notes, ladies. Like I'm learning here today. Like I'm learning. I'm like, okay,
We're learning together.
yeah, no, I'm definitely learning. But I do want to touch back on just a little bit. You mentioned, Sonia, that you wanted to be, that you were gonna write a children's book. I want to just ask, when did you know you wanted to be a children's author? Like, how did you know this is what you wanted to share with the world?
Since I was, and this is going to age me, but since I was little, I
Mhm.
wanted to write, and when I was a little girl, and I have this particular book. I wish I had it with me so I could show you. But I have this book that my mom used to read to me, and it was a bilingual children's book. I think it was Little Red Riding Hood, Caperucita Roja. So I have it, and it's bilingual. It's English, and you flip it around, and it's in Spanish. And every night she would read it to me. So that somehow stayed with me. And my whole life, I said I want to write a book. I just didn't know what the topic was. And then when my daughter was born, because the book is it's a Christmas book, and it's based on a true story with my daughter. So when my daughter was born, and it was it has to do with Christmas, and I'm like, hey, this would be a really good book to write about for kids, because all kids, wonder about Santa and Christmas and tying it in together. But it was important for me to make it a flip where it's bilingual as well. And it's funny because there's an artist that I interviewed. It's a group, because just like Jacqueline, I'm very spiritual. I love my Christian KSBJ. I've interviewed like Danny Goki and Mercy Me. So Mercy Me did a movie called I Can Only Imagine. And I remember the scene where the Amy Grant asked him, because he says, "Oh, you can have the song. I wrote it in 10 minutes." And she tells him, "You didn't write this in 10 minutes. This took a lifetime." So it's been a lifetime that I've been wanting to write the book. I just wrote it last year. I know, and when I say that, it's like, man, I should be so embarrassed or so disappointed in myself all these years, and I'm just now doing it. And it's like, but it's never the wrong time. I don't think it's ever the wrong time. It's when
Timing
you're
isn't
ready.
everything.
I think it's when you feel it's your time.
Mhm.
So I felt like the pandemic also helped move things along a little bit. So I had more time, but I probably wrote it in an hour, but it didn't take me an hour to put this idea together. It took
Mhm.
a lifetime. So
Mhm.
I totally get that. Yeah.
That's
Absolutely. And I
amazing.
love that movie. I love it.
Thank you for sharing that, Sonia. Jacqueline, so before we leave off, I wanted one last question, and this one's towards you. Um, so I've heard you talk about your career in acting and singing. I never asked you fully. And of course, this is a relationship that I definitely want to grow in depth with you ladies. Like I wanted to like full on get to know y'all outside of the work that we do. And hopefully this is an introduction to that, because I love you ladies a lot, and I definitely want to get to know y'all much better. But my
Same.
question to you is, what what and when was it that you were like, oh, I'm actually a pretty good actor, I can sing pretty well, or this might be a thing, because you've made money doing acting. Like you're a full-on actress, like you're a paid actress. So
Finally, yeah.
so when did you know that you were like, actually, this is pretty good, like skill. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like acting, everybody wants to be an actress. I think so, but like from going from I want to be to I'm doing, what was that transition for you?
Um, you know what? Kind of like what Sonia said, it's been a lifetime. um, I'm in my 30s now, and um, music was always a huge part of my life. I started singing in church, like, I think as early as 2. Like there's a picture of me and my big sister on stage and my dad like coaching us, and we both have microphones and we're singing. And I was about 2 years old then. So I always sang in church, and I sang on the ensemble slash, I guess it's called the worship team now at Lakewood, for years, and I was in their choir. And that's when, like, I guess when I was a teenager is when like the music, I think, really came out. I really got inspired with music, because before I just wanted to be like a pop artist. And then in my teen years, I felt like a calling to be in like ministry, like worship music. And I was never into worship music before because I thought it was like lame and boring. And then I heard a few artists that I was like, oh wow, that's like good music. It's actually good music. And then it just, you know, when I felt like that calling or that anointing kind of activate, I guess, in my teen years, it changed everything for me as far as music, you know. And so getting to sing with Lakewood in my teen years and in my 20s was great because I got that exposure. I sang on stage, you know, we sang for, you know, all kinds of services. You know, I was able to do overdubs for them in the studio. And that was all volunteer work. But that was like real experience, and it helped me overcome a lot of fears too. But it was great having those experiences. And as far as acting, I think I was in my first play when I was like in first grade. And I remember even then, I didn't have any lines, but I was like being narrated and I was acting out. It was a book called The Story of Bethana. I think it was like Tommy DePaula or something. And it just felt so natural for me. I was always like a goofy kid and like a performer. My mom like had no idea what to do with me. I was like doing like Jim Carrey and Tina Turner and James Bond impressions in like kindergarten. You know, I mean, I was a weirdo. Who does that, right? Especially like a little girl. Like I was not like a typical little girl. I was like constantly performing and, you know, just being goofy and stuff. And so that was always a part of like just me. I watched a lot of TV and movies growing up, you know, and like my husband even now he's like, wow, when we were dating, he's like, you watch a lot of TV and movies. Like he wasn't used. I loved going to the movies every weekend. He was like, I've never seen so many movies in my life. And I'm like, really? He's like, that's like natural for me. That's normal for me. Like movies and TV is it's like, I love reading too, but like, I think I'm a very visual person. So like seeing it on a screen and it's just enchanting, you know, being, uh, you know, having this world, you know, I kind of like get lost in that world, whatever story I'm watching unfold, you know? So, I, I've always known I've loved TV and movies. And I think in middle school, I was in plays. In high school, I was in a few plays. And but it wasn't until like, I think high school that it really clicked for me that I was like, well, let me see if I can do this. I think, I was probably a senior in high school. I had just graduated. I got an agent. Um, and I went on a bunch of auditions. I got headshots and all that. But nothing ever happened here in Houston, you know. And I just kind of got discouraged. And I finally just kind of quit. I was like, you know what, maybe it's not for me. You know, maybe music and all that is just not for me. But it never went away, that feeling, you know. Every year I watch the Oscars. That's a huge thing for me. Like my husband teases me. It's a big thing. I put it on my calendar. You know, whatever's going on when the Oscars start, I'm there. I cry with the people accepting their speeches. You know, I clap like I don't know. I know I'm a big dork, but like it means a lot to me.
Yeah.
I do
Oh my
too.
God,
Don't
I'm a
worry.
total
I do
dork.
too.
But I just, you know, it's just, I'm just like, and I tell my husband, oh, and so just won, and they're accepted in their second speech, and he's just like, oh, okay. And I'm just like, oh, you know, I'm so excited about it. So I don't know, it's just something that it never went away, that feeling. And then after so many years of hearing actors say, well, so and so started at 30, so and so started at 40, you know, like it's never too late to start. And I was like, well, hell, like this feeling has not gone away. It's like a, you know, a fire that won't be put out,
Yeah.
you know? And that's when I realized like, and after many years of praying, like, okay, God, if this is from you, this is like a gift, a God-given gift, you know, if this is an anointing, like, then use it, you know, use it, like open the doors for me. 'Cause I don't want to do this in vain. I don't want to do this to get attention and be famous and all that. You know, whoever, if you want to be famous, cool, you know. But for me, I didn't want to do that. You know, I just want to do this for the right reasons because it's what I'm meant to do. And so that's when I realized, like, okay, this is my answer. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do because it's like this burning passion, like desire. Like, I have to do it And so finally in my 30s, I was like, let me get back into this, update my headshots, get a backstage account because I don't have an agent yet. But, it's like, let me start seeing what's out there, and after a couple of short films, I got a commercial and I'm like, hey, this is not bad. I can actually do this. And it feels good. And, there will always be naysayers. There'll always be people, even your own family, your own mother or, or sisters or, I mean,
Yeah.
my family is really supportive, but there are people that make faces like, oh, really? Acting? Okay, well, all right. And it's like, that's cool, but this is my thing. This is my life. This is my calling. You don't have to understand it. It's not for you to understand. It's something that God gave to me. God gave you your own gift. Focus on that. This is my gift. I can't. Life is so short. I don't want to leave this earth like not having done the things that I was meant to do.
Or not try.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because that fear, it comes back to that fear.
Yeah.
Because for so long, the fear got me, stage fright or
Mhm.
social anxiety or whatever it is, you name it. Fear has so many different faces, you know. But yeah, now I'm just like, and I don't know where I heard this from, excuse my language too, and I heard this other thing. I use a lot of different pep talks. But I heard this other thing someone say, and I don't think it was a preacher because they were like, when you hear the voice of fear, tell it to fuck off. And just say it.
All right, that's going in the notes. When you hear
So
fear coming
I use
apart,
that
tell it to
sometimes because
fuck off.
sometimes you just need to say, nope, you hear that voice, no, fuck off. It's just
Mhm.
use the word.
Hmm.
I
Or,
like that.
just go away, but tell it, talk to it.
Yeah.
Get out of here. Nope, not today. Not today, devil.
Not today, devil.
No,
Go bother
not
somebody
today.
else.
Nope,
Like the
nope.
snaps. Not
Not
today.
gonna listen to that.
I absolutely love this. I think we can go down this topic. I think I found some topics that if I would love to reintroduce, and when we there in Houston, we're all together, I would love to have these conversations again. But for the sake of time's sake, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this conversation up. And again, you're gonna hear more about these ladies, Sonia and Jacqueline. They're coming on as co-hosts. They're gonna be integral parts of what we're doing on here, and we're gonna continue these conversations. But ladies, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having us.
I knew what my intro was going to be, and I knew what like my mid roll was going to be. But this last part here, I think it's definitely bittersweet for me to be able to hand the baton to other ladies to be able to integrate their voices into the Latina Leadership Series. I am proud of them. I am proud of them on taking this task and being able to be vulnerable with me and with you listeners and viewers. I think they have, as mentioned, I believe they have a lot of insight. They have a lot of collectively, a lot of knowledge individually and collectively, but they also bring community to this podcast. And that's ultimately what I wanted to create, was community. Bringing the podcast to this point and understanding that growth comes with others. It's exactly what I wanted to do. I hope you enjoy the conversations they have. I hope you also share with them what you think as you hear them along. I know and understand that I have friends who are completely different from each other. And this is exactly what we wanted to do. Was I wanted to complete kind of the sphere of what differences look like, or what same opinions with different perspectives might seem to you, or what or what you maybe might be able to navigate more towards. Maybe you like my perspective, but I don't know if you can relate to me, right? And I hope that you can relate to one of these ladies, because they're different. They're definitely from different walks of life. Although we do have similarities, they're definitely from different walks of life. ¿Cómo te expreso the orgullo that I have? I can't even bring the words, the happiness that this brings to me to be able to bring this to this podcast. It's an amazing conversations that we had. But I know they're going to I'm over here trying to cry. I'm not trying to cry. I know that they're going to bring amazing conversations to this podcast. I know they're going to do their best efforts, because I see it. So with that, I'll see you next time. Bye.